Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the Insurance and Real Estate Committee's working group on pharmacist compensation. This is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. My name is State Representative Carrie Wood, and I'm chairing this working group with my co-chair, Senator George Cabrera. And welcome, and thank you all for giving us your time and energy during the summer. But the work that we do here now is going to help us be better prepared for the upcoming legislative session. Do we have any other remarks from the ranking members? I don't know if they're online. Okay, we will move to number 3 on the agenda, which is member introductions. And there's many of us in the room. There's many of us on the virtual side. I will call names, but what we'd love to hear is your name, your title, a little bit about your background, so that we can all get familiar with who we're working with. I will go to, is Michelle Pope here from Michelle Pope Insurance? Oh, okay, I see Insurance Associate Examiner, Life and Health Division. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Pope. I'm with the Connecticut Insurance Department. I have over 20 years experience in insurance with the state as well as from the private sector. I was selected by the commissioner to participate in this work group to provide any technical expertise.
Great, wonderful. Next, we have Troy Ruff, Principal Drug Control Agent with DCP.
Good morning. My name is Troy Ruff. I'm a Principal Drug Control Agent for the Department of Consumer Protection Drug Control Division. My background is I have 20 plus years of pharmacy experience, including retail.
Thank you. Next, we have Todd DeGroff, owner of Beacon Pharmacy in New Britain.
Good morning, Mrs. Chairwoman. My name is Todd DeGroff. I am the owner of Beacon Prescriptions at 543 West Main Street in New Britain. We are a retail pharmacy located in New Britain that has been in business for over 30 years. We have a retail side and a long-term care side, employ over 45 employees, and we make deliveries throughout the entire state of Connecticut with specialty packaging. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Next, we have Julian Karuni. Okay, next we have Osama Abdulani.
Good morning, Sam Abdulani. I'm an oncology pharmacist by training. I spent my entire career at Yale New Haven, over 20 plus years in a variety of roles. I'm currently the executive director for oncology pharmacy, and I'm here to represent a hospital pharmacist. On the other hat I wear, I'm the immediate past president for the Connecticut Society of Health System Pharmacists. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we'll note Sam as your name on here. Next, we have Sam Hallmeyer.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Hallmeyer with PCMA. PCMA is the National Trade Association for America's Pharmacy Benefit Managers, and I'm happy to participate in this.
Thank you. Next, we have Susan Halpin.
Good morning. My name is Susan Halpin, and I am with Robinson & Cole Government Relations, and I am sitting here today in my capacity as the Executive Director of the Connecticut Association of Health Plans, representing the trade association here in Connecticut of Aetna, Anthem, Cigna, Connecticut, and United Healthcare.
Thank you. Next, we have Marie Smith.
Good morning. My name is Marie Smith, and I am a professor and assistant dean at UConn School of Pharmacy. I'm a pharmacist by background, practice clinically in primary care with family medicine residency programs, and most of my work now is on research for new models of pharmacist care, both in care delivery on teams and payment reform methods.
Next, we have Tim Phelan.
Good morning. I'm Tim Phelan, president of the Connecticut Retail Network. We were formerly known as the Connecticut Retail Merchants Association. We're a statewide group representing some of the world's largest retailers and the state's Main Street merchants. I've been kicking around the Capitol for most of my adult career, so know a little bit how the legislative process works, and I appreciate very much Representative Wood and others allowing me to serve on this task force, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Next, we have Paul Pescatello.
Thank you. I zoomed in just in time. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice, so I'll make it brief. So Paul Pescatello with the CBIA. I've run for years the Bioscience Growth Council for the CBIA, and I look very much forward to working with this group.
Next, we have Kelly Cope.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Gavigan Cody. I presently work at Access Health Connecticut. I'm the manager in plan management and have about 30 years in the private sector, experience in the private sector, and look forward to participating on this work group.
Thank you. Next, we have Matt Murphy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm the team lead oncology and investigational drug service pharmacist at a cancer program in a neighboring academic health system right over the border in Mass. While I do work in Mass, I received my training in Connecticut where I still practice. Happy to support this initiative, and I hope that I might offer some unique perspective.
Thank you. Next, we have Ed Schreiner.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair. My name's Ed Schreiner. I was formerly for 35 years the owner of Stoll's Pharmacy in Waterbury, Connecticut. I do have experience in pharmacists providing clinical service in the retail space. Currently, I'm acting as Community Pharmacy Enhanced Service Network, or CPSN Connecticut chapter. I act as their network facilitator and payer contract engagement lead. So I do have experience contracting for pharmacy clinical services.
Thank you. And finally, we have Jean Cronin. Oh, Julian, great. And anyone that was that missed their name being called, Julian, it sounds like you've joined. If you want to give us your name and title.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing me the few minutes. My name is Julian Karuni. I'm a pharmacist by training. I'm currently an area healthcare supervisor with Walgreens. I've been in the pharmacy world now for almost 25 years, and was a past president for the Connecticut Pharmacy Association. I'm looking forward to working with everyone on this working group on reimbursement.
Thank you. Is there anyone that has joined late that didn't get to introduce themselves? Okay, we will move on to review of the Public Act. I will just review Section 7, which pertains to this working group, and that just says not later than July 1st, 2025. The chairpersons of the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly, having cognizance of matters relating to insurance or their designees, shall convene a working group to study and make recommendations for legislation related to the compensation of pharmacists licensed under Chapter 400J of the General Statutes, who provide certain healthcare services, including but not limited to vaccine administration, HIV-related tests, influenza-related tests, and the prescribing of contraceptive devices or products approved by the FDA. The next part of this is more related to the composition of the group. I'll move on to the other sections that pertain to what we need to be working on, which is not later than February 1st, 2026, the working group shall submit a report on its findings and legislative recommendations to the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly, having cognizance of matters relating to insurance. So what we envision doing here is meeting monthly throughout the rest of the year, and hopefully putting together a report in January to submit to the legislature. And if we need an extra month, we have it. But hopefully we can get it done sooner rather than later. Any questions on the Public Act? Great. just want to acknowledge Ranking Member Representative Kara Pavlak D'Amato has joined us. Okay, so we can move on to discussion of timelines and meeting dates. We can set the meeting dates for the next meeting kind of at the meeting that we're currently having. And I was just looking at the calendar of what would be a month out. And I was looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 19th, 20th, and 21st. I realize that there's vacations and other things that are going on, so all of us are not going to be able to participate, but we will be doing work offline as well. So you don't have to be at every single meeting. If you're looking at your calendars and we do something similar, 11 to noon, I'm even open to doing noon to 1 if that works better with people's schedules. Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, anything preferred from the group. And anyone online, please feel free to chime in. Does a Tuesday work for everybody? Fine with that. Okay. We'll set the next date for Tuesday, August 19th, 11 to noon. Okay, great. Okay, the next part, section 6 of our agenda is breaking us into subcommittees to really review these 4 parts of the Public Act: vaccines, HIV test, influenza-related tests, and contraceptives. And I wanted to just ask everyone on the working group, does that make sense to divide people up? Sam, please chime in.
I really think we should reconsider, and maybe it will be helpful to take a step back,
Yep.
because this is really a mean to a higher end. So if we take a couple of minutes to talk about the why we got here and what we want to get out of it. Essentially, the ultimate goal of this work is to enhance access to care, improve outcomes, and decrease cost. And we all know that there's a problem with access. We all know that despite spending more money than any other country, we don't have the same outcomes that other countries do. And we have tons of studies over the last 30 years that show pharmacists engaging in clinical activities improve outcomes and decrease costs. And that was done in a clinic, that was done in retail setting, and done in multiple states. And because of all of that, we already have legislations that allow pharmacists to engage in all those activities outlined in the law. The only issue that none of those clinical activities are reimbursed separately. So you can imagine someone with a potential high risk for HIV or need birth control. They need to spend 30 minutes with a pharmacist to talk about clinical background, drug interactions, the right drug, monitoring parameters, and that 30 minutes is not reimbursed. And that's why we're here, because without that reimbursement piece, the promise of this legislation would never be realized, at least from what I'm seeing it. So we are here to try to get a way for pharmacists to be able to provide those services to really reach the outcomes that we're looking for. And by the way, this is not novel, but 40 plus states have already done that. So I think the best way is to look at the concept holistically, because I don't think the details of HIV versus birth control in a subgroup will change the outcome much.
Yep.
We'll really slice the same topic for different ways. It will be less efficient from my perspective. It's one conversation about the concept, why it makes sense, and how you implement it. Thank you.
Ed Schreiner.
Yes, hi. I'd like to agree with Sam. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm with CPSN, and it's a national organization. And currently they already have in states that allow the practices we're talking about on this committee, over 250 current active contracts to provide these services across the country. So the infrastructure has already been built by pharmacies on how to do these services, how to get your pharmacist credentialed, because not all pharmacists are going to be billing. It has to be credentialed clinical pharmacist. So I agree with Sam, going by one, there's not going to be much change in how the whole picture works out. And also, the legislation does say, including but not limited to those items. So in Connecticut, right off the top of my head, I think about naloxone training for patients. So I think it would be better if we did it as a holistic discussion that included all things that pharmacists could do under their license.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. Julian?
So I would agree with both Ed and Sam. And from a working group perspective, I think having the different perspectives from all of the settings that we represent, I think we can attack all of the different services in the same token. And I think come to a conclusion in a more efficient way. All of those services ultimately, as Sam mentioned, do address the cost and the overall outcome that our patients are seeking and we need for our patients. So combining all of us together in this working group, I think we'll come to a better conclusion if we're not divided and addressing them all together.
All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Marie.
I have just one other comment to give a real example of why it might be better for us to focus on the issue of payment across services rather than individual services. Many of you will know and participated in June 2023, so 2 years ago, to pass pharmacist prescribing of hormonal contraceptives. And there are several, there are 36, maybe even closer to 40 states now that do that. UConn School of Pharmacy was asked to put together the training program from that, and that was done about a year ago. Pharmacists could start signing up to do the training to offer that service in January of this year. And I just asked my colleague who runs that program how many pharmacists have signed up. And she said, well, there's about 17 pharmacists who have signed up out of thousands and thousands that are eligible. So many of them did it for continuing education purposes, but we also had I worked with an honor student this past year, and we surveyed pharmacists in the state of Connecticut and asked them, it was right after the bill was passed, and asked them, are you thinking of doing this? If so, what would facilitate, what would be a barrier? And the number one reason two reasons that people in pharmacy said they would not do it is that the barrier of not being reimbursed and not having sufficient staffing, which is tied to reimbursement and resources, to be able to do that. So I would echo what was said and say, let's focus on kind of the payment issues. There are 42, I think 43 other states that have tackled this. So I guess we can be proud of being one of the laggard states, only 7 of us who don't have any kind of reimbursement for these patient care services.
So what I'm hearing, I'm trying to have us be productive between meetings. So one of the things that we can do are, the leadership on the committee and our staff is look at how other states implement this and share it with the group. So that is something we will take on and make sure that we get that to everyone prior to the next meeting. I'm kind of looking to the experts online and in the room here to guide us in the direction of how do we understand what services you're providing. It does say and others, so I want to make sure that we are capturing all of that. And maybe, some of the offline work could be the amount of time each of those services takes, how many times you're meeting with people. Is it monthly? Is it, 6 times? I mean, things like that, I think would be very helpful to understanding how we move forward with payment reimbursement. Is that something that I can ask the group to participate in for the next meeting? We will have Allie. Allie Keif is the administrator of this, so she will be keeping us all organized. I'll have Allie make sure that she sends out a membership list with everyone's emails on it. She'll take a stab at the first email, and I would just ask that in order to make sure that our information and our attention stays focused on this, to not inundate that email list, with things. And if you need to talk to people directly in order to gather data, I do encourage you for that. We also can gather data here. So please reach out to us. We're happy to ask our research team to do things. So if you come up with something like, hey, can you run a report on this? We can definitely dive into that. So I think those are two good things that we can focus on for the next meeting. Again, ask anyone else, are we missing anything for next meeting deliverables? I do just want to throw something out there too, related to what we do here in the state of Connecticut. We regulate the fully insured market. So those are people on the exchange, the Affordable Care Act plans, which is currently about 140,000 people. And we also regulate people off the exchange and fully insured plans, which is about 200 to 300,000 people. So while you are experiencing issues maybe in other plans that aren't related to the fully insured market, what we do here in legislation we pass will impact that market only. So I just want to make sure you keep that in mind. Sue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, you just stated what I was going to state, although I did have a question of whether we're focusing only on commercial or Medicaid, which is also under the state of Connecticut's purview. Is that a subject that we're talking about as well? And I defer to those who have brought this issue forward. I don't know the answer myself.
I think this issue relates to all insurances, commercial and Medicaid as well, definitely.
Representative Meskers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I joined a while ago. I've been listening. I was in transit, but I've paid attention to the commentaries. Question here. We're looking both at the procedures on the vaccines, et cetera, that are going to be covered or should be or consider covering by pharmacists, right? Within the overview, should we be considering, I'm assuming these are not supplemental services, but these are services that would otherwise be handled by other aspects of our medical profession. Should we be looking at deliverables and the overall cost of the deliverables? I don't know if that's within the scope of the legislation.
I think we were just talking about that in terms of the deliverables and understanding that for each of the services. So yes, I definitely think that's part of it, and anyone else can chime in if they have additional comments. Sam?
But just as a follow through on that, Madam Chair, it's just as we look at expanding either the delivering of services, which I'm obviously not opposed and I'm a proponent of, it's going to be a question of, are we spending will we be spending at a lower rate in delivering services and allowing pharmacists to participate in the delivery of services? But I'll demur to Sam. Thank you, though.
So item by item, we are looking at expanding access and delivery of services via pharmacists. We focusing on items or things that can be delivered within the scope of pharmacy practice. And some of them are already mentioned in the legislation, but there are a lot more, including chronic disease management, and there's many of those. In terms of rates, it's been done in different ways across the country, but most of them, the services have to be services that are consistent with something else that be provided by other healthcare provider. So it's done by physicians or PAs or EPRNs, and pharmacists will take on that. So this is not an addition or different from something that's already offered today. Rate are two different ways. Sometimes it would be equivalent or not less than, or not less than 85%. And we can share some of those models across the country. It's meant to provide that access and improve outcomes, not necessarily cut costs compared to another discipline, because that's also lend itself to a whole host of problems. We really want to promote access to patients and improve their outcomes because they cannot get to that provider. They cannot get to their doctors, not necessarily because of the lower rate. Although it's done in the country within 85% of a physician rate, for example. We'll share some of those models, and then we can recommend the best one that we want to adopt.
Ed?
Yes, I just wanted to address rates myself. Again, CPSN does contracting currently with a number of state programs and national insurance carriers. And looking at how we contract, the goal is always to save an insurer money and to provide better outcomes for patients. So when we do contracting, we do a two-pronged contract, and this is something I think insurers should think about if they haven't already done that. So the first part is what we're discussing here today, a fee for service billing for a pharmacist who's documenting and being reimbursed for a direct clinical care activity with a patient. And so those are usually tied to a physician fee schedule on a statewide basis at some percent, 85%. Some states want to do 100% of the physician's fee schedule so that they're not driving to a lower cost alternative. And that was a physician group generated request. But that's the fee for service part. And for an insurer, what I'd recommend they think about is a secondary part of this, and that they do a value-based agreement with a group of pharmacies that captures the collective impact of the pharmacy network and would align the billing services with a defined outcome. So in other words, what is that pharmacy that's billing the services for? What positive outcome are they providing to the insurer that's going to hopefully the ROA is going to be a positive. I'm sorry, ROI will be positive for the insurer where they're making savings in some other silo that offsets and even creates greater savings than what they're paying the pharmacist. So that value-based contracting is a great way for an insurer or a program sponsor to control their costs.
I was just going to call on Susan, but she already raised her hand. Susan.
I am just diving into this issue now. Obviously, I paid attention to it while it was being negotiated during the legislative session, but I'm looking forward to digging in more on my end to find out what is and isn't done today. Ed, I know you mentioned you contract with a number of the national carriers through the national organization. In Connecticut, the majority of our carriers are national carriers. Do you currently have contracts in place, given that you represent so many of the pharmacies whereby you are reimbursed, pharmacists are reimbursed for some of these services in Connecticut?
So, well, Connecticut, as Marie Smith had said, we don't have the legal authority to bill like this. We're not recognized as providers. So there is no contracts that directly impact Connecticut now. But I can say that there are national players such as United Healthcare and Cigna who have contracts in numerous other states, typically for their Medicaid managed care plans that go out and they actually recruit pharmacists to do this because they see the cost savings. So we need a mechanism, number one, to bill, to be able to access Connecticut to do that. And that's it. But the top of my head, United Healthcare is a huge contributor. They've actually put out a white paper on this about how it saves them money, and they have a dedicated person to recruit and manage pharmacy network for clinical services. Texas is another state that does their Blue Cross program, has a number of successful programs with pharmacies. And again, it's only credentialed clinical pharmacist activity that are being reimbursed. So it's not our dispensing pharmacies and pharmacists, it's the people doing the clinical work in those pharmacies.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just a question. Whose authority do you need? The insurer's authority, or is it a Department of Public Health requirement or a DCP requirement? I guess I'm just a little confused myself. Who provides you the authority to seek reimbursement?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah. Ed, can you answer that or any?
Yeah. So for instance, in Texas, their law states that I'm sorry, I had it written down here. Their law, they have a Texas law, is House Bill 3441 that passed a couple years ago that says you may not deny reimbursement to a pharmacist provision of service or procedure within the scope of the pharmacist's license to practice pharmacy and must be covered if the same service is covered by a physician, APN, or PA. So that law doesn't negotiate contracts. It just gives them the right to be recognized as a provider to engage in those contracts. So currently in Connecticut, we don't have that right. So I can engage, and I've talked to people in the state about, engage for the value-based contracting part without the fee for service billing. But you need the fee for service billing to document what those pharmacists are doing. And they do that through their electronic system called an e-care plan. So a payer is going to see if it's billed through an e-care plan or another third-party service provider. Now, there are other platforms out there. But when a pharmacist bills, they're going to be also documenting what those clinical activities are doing and barriers that they may find or social determinants of health that are impacted. So there's a lot more to it. But without the ability in statute for a pharmacist to do those kind of fee-for-service billings, it's almost impossible to contract for the fee-for-service side.
Susan?
Thank you. And this is very helpful. Thank you for engaging in this dialogue. I guess I view the language that you just referenced a little bit differently. I view it as a mandate for reimbursement, not that you're necessarily precluded from getting reimbursed today if you enter into a contract with an insurer. So I guess I would ask DCP, is there anything in state statute currently under their scope of practice that prevents pharmacists from entering into a contract of this nature that we're talking about? Do they need specific authority, or could that be a contract between a insurer, if they so chose, and a pharmacist or group of pharmacists as Ed represents?
I'd have to actually go back and speak to Rod Mayer, our director, and kind of go through that with us. But off the top of my head, I don't know of there being any of that in our department.
Thank you. And then I guess I would ask the same. I don't know that we have anybody here from the Department of Social Services, but I guess I would ask the same question for the Department of Social Services, with Medicaid representing almost 1 million members in the state of Connecticut. My question is, does Medicaid reimburse pharmacists for these services? And I don't know the answer to that.
Marie.
So the answer today for Medicaid in Connecticut is no, they do not, for any patient care clinical services. There are several states in the country who have Medicaid programs and Medicaid does not require legislation. There are administrative procedures, mostly just filling out a form for this idea of if other healthcare providers can do it and it's within the scope of practice of the pharmacist, there can be administrative procedures that take place and maybe over a period of several months, get approval from CMS and Medicaid can pay. But there's nothing, we don't have any processes in Connecticut today.
Any other questions or comments? Sam?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I just have a comment. I know that NCPDP is working on a reimbursement mechanism. It's not published yet. I know it's being worked on. I think going to be published this October. So at the next meeting, I can follow up more with information on that, because I know NCPDP is working on something similar. I think it started with vaccine reimbursements, but they're also adding other pharmacy services as well.
Thank you. And I just have a question for everyone in the group here. If someone is visiting Connecticut from out of state and they use a service and their state has a payment model, are you then billing and getting reimbursed for that?
Unlikely.
Ed?
The answer to that is a definite no. For fee-for-service billing in most of the other states, well, all of them that I'm aware of, the provider has to be credentialed with the program. So that if they're not a credentialed enrolled provider, just like a physician or a PA in the state that they're in, if they're not if they're not credentialed by the plan has no way to identify who that provider is. So there is no pay for out of state unless that pharmacy and pharmacist is credentialed by that patient's insurance plan. So you may see, for instance, in Connecticut, how that would apply is if there was a pharmacy in Danbury, a pharmacist in Danbury who saw a lot of people coming over the line from New York State, and they enrolled as a New York provider, credential provider in whatever that plan was, then they could bill. But without having that credentialing process, there's no way to be identified and bill.
Thank you for that. And just to follow up, would that mean that a person who's going in for a vaccine, say, have to pay out of pocket at the time of service? Or, if they present their insurance card like, hey, we're in New York, this is
If they're
covered.
a national insurance carrier, no, it's covered. But if they're on any type of other state Medicaid programs, it's only allowed in that state.
Great, thank you. Julian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's two different billing platforms that we'll need to discuss and utilize. So from a pharmacy standpoint, we utilize an instant billing mechanism where the pharmacy benefits are billed and we're able to get that copay back for the patient. When we talk about medical billing for services, a lot of the pharmacists did establish that mechanism through COVID and do have a lot of different platforms that are available. I think to Ed's point, the credentialing piece is going to be key and allow the pharmacist to enroll. So I think credential delegation is going to be a key piece to this, where the entity is enrolled and they are the ones that are managing the credentials and the training for each of their pharmacists to be able to build the medical side. And in order to build the medical side for the services that we're focusing on, there needs to be documentation, and then it's submitted, and that's when the payment is provided. It's not instant like the pharmacy side. So I think that's where the pharmacists are not able to bill for the services because they're not recognized as providers, even though we have the national provider identification. However, we don't have that platform, and that's where the legislation piece is missing.
Okay, I think we've uncovered a bunch of challenges in this discussion. I have written down a bunch of these items, including the services that pharmacists provide, other state legislation, payment model, insurance savings, and credentialing. Are those 5 things good for us to tackle for the next meeting? I will send around an agenda, and please feel free to do breakouts on your own if you want to prepare some of the stuff to bring. And again, we are here to help. We're just the facilitators of all you guys that are doing this every day. And if there's any reporting or any data that we can help you provide, please reach out to myself, Kara, or Allie. Anything else that we would like to talk about for this first meeting? Great, I don't see any hands up. So we have a lot that we're going to tackle during the next meeting, which is going to be Tuesday, August 19th at 11 a.m. And we will send around an email to everyone. And that's it. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.